The nasty thing about COVID is that it fools around with you. It ridicules you. People don't believe or didn't believe at the time is real. You know, there were the people like, it's just the flu, you know, or this isn't real. This PPE uniform, it's all fabricated and they're trying to scare us. And I can tell you from firsthand, everything that we have seen on TV is real. Doctors were telling me your husband's deteriorating. It's getting critical. So you're like thinking all kinds of things. Number one, I didn't say a proper bye to my husband. That was just a kiss on the cheek. This can't be it. You know, the kids, the same. What do I tell the kids? I left the door open and I'm crying and I'm angry and suddenly a white feather lands on my lap. I still have it. I should have brought it to show you guys, but a white feather lands on my lap and I just stopped crying. And I get this feather and I just said, we're not alone. Someone is listening to me, to my prayers or my despair.
I'm Farah Shammas. Welcome to Hotel Talk. We hope you enjoy listening to this friendly conversation between people connected by real life in hotels. Welcome back to Hotel Talk, and today I've got a lovely, lovely guest who I would like to consider a friend as well because we worked together for so many years and on so many projects. Her name is Marie Mack. And Marie actually is an interior designer and a very talented interior designer. And trust me, I've worked with many. And you're by far my favorite, my dear. I really
thank you so much.
Enjoyed working with you. But however, she has left interior design, sadly, and momentarily, I like to think I keep teasing her back into it. Look at this space that I'm doing. And now she's working in reinsurance in a family business. And we'll get into a little bit about how that happened and why. But obviously the connection here is that Marie and I did work in the hotel in the tower together on projects. So again, hotels always connect people one way or another. So Marie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. So why don't you tell everyone listening a little bit about you? You're Lebanese German, so we've got the Lebanese connection and the German connection because my mum's also half German. So let's chat a little bit about you, your family, how you ended up in Cyprus, how you got into interior design. Yeah, just fill in the blank.
Little introduction about me. Well, I arrived in Cyprus. I was 12 years old. So, it was very, very difficult at the time, of course, because leaving Germany where I had all the green fields and I grew up next to farms and horses and cows and coming to Cyprus, it was completely different for me. I arrived in August, so everything was pretty dried out and there was no greenery and it was a bit shocking, in terms of how the country was so different for me. Of course, I missed my brothers and sisters who we left in Germany. I only had my younger sister with me. Because everyone was already working. They had their girlfriends, boyfriends, and they were set in their ways. And the younger two girls, they moved to Cyprus. And it was hard at the beginning, but we settled in really, really well. Until today, I wouldn't leave Cyprus. I love it here, and we completely grew into the culture. I feel that partly I'm Cypriot myself. Everyone is friendly and kind and everyone knows everyone. And I think it's a nice place to be. I'm loving, raising my children in this country. I'm confident. I feel that they're safe here. They're very, very happy. And as I said, I wouldn't leave. I mean, I go on our holidays. We visit Lebanon. We visit Germany. We visit England because my husband, he's born and raised in England. But Cyprus is for me the place now.
It's home.
Yeah.
So how did you get into interior design?
Well, actually, the funny thing, my family decided to move to Lebanon 15 years after coming to Cyprus. They decided to leave Cyprus and go to Lebanon. And I had already met my now husband and we were engaged. So I decided to stay. And actually, no, I was not engaged because I remember my dad set me down. And he said, you're going to go off to study now, but you don't know what you want to study yet. And I'm not leaving Cyprus until you tell me what you want to study. So I hadn't decided. I was in a few minds. I was thinking kindergartner because I love children. And I was thinking kindergartner, maybe. Then I went maybe graphic design because I did always like to, be creative. And then as we were going through this leaflet with my dad, he flipped over from graphic design to the next page and it said interior design. And I told him, stop the page. And we read together about this leaflet and I thought, this sounds really interesting, actually. I think I'm going to go for that.
You were 18 at that time.
I was 18 at the time. Yeah. And I had no idea what was coming at me with interior design, but it sounded good. It sounded creative. And I said to him, I'll go for that. So it wasn't something I knew from before, actually. You think
you didn't grow up.
I didn't grow up saying, I want to be an interior designer. I didn't know what I wanted. Through my life, I was singing, I was on stage, I was writing. I had different hobbies, but nothing was telling me this is what I want to do with my life. So in the end, I went for interior design. I studied 4 years, got my bachelor degree.
Where did you study?
I studied in Nicosia, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I stayed in Cyprus and went to the University of Frederick. And I loved it. It was a very, very nice university, I have to say. And it was a nice experience because even just driving back and forth, Limassol, Nicosia is exciting at this age,
Yeah.
I didn't feel that I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I was always family oriented. And me thinking, okay, I looked. Maybe should I go to Germany and come back? I didn't want to leave my then boyfriend, Steph. I didn't want to leave him. My family had moved to Lebanon and I didn't want to be further away from anybody that I loved. I was already taken from my brothers and sisters when I was 12 and I didn't want to leave them at this stage either because I always had that in my mind, life is short and I didn't want to be further away than that. 25-minute flight to Lebanon. To see my parents, that was perfect.
Yeah.
So I decided, even through my studies, to stay.
And I think that's a common phenomenon that I think many people see or feel. And I know definitely I have at different points in my life where people who travel a lot, who are from mixed cultural backgrounds, you get tired and you say, no, I want to have a base. I want to be grounded. I want to have roots. So yeah, I remember when I finished my studies, my original plan was to go to Greece for a year before coming back here. But I was so tired. I'd been at boarding school. We'd been traveling all our lives. And I was like, no, I just want to
settle.
settle.
Yeah. I was, I didn't see a point to leave. I always wanted to be a mother from a young age. So if I would, go anywhere else, I wanted just to be here with my boyfriend, who then turned into a fiance, of course.
Yeah.
And then, we, at a young age, I actually fell pregnant at 24, initially. Unfortunately, we lost that baby. And it was heartbreaking because at 24, you know nothing. You don't expect it. You don't think that these things can happen in life and it just shakes you up. But I said once, all this happened with the baby and I was still studying, just about to graduate. I said to Steph, we're going to get married. We were already engaged. So I lost the baby. It was November, December. And then...
And how many months pregnant were you?
I was 3 months. We had the heartbeat as well. So it was, it was hard. But I said to Steph, once I'm good and ready to go, I want to get pregnant again directly. I don't want to wait. I want to be a mother. I knew it always. And we did. We fell pregnant, thank God, after the doctor gave me the green light. We tried again and I fell pregnant. And at the wedding, I was already pregnant. Yeah.
Which is what you wanted.
Which is exactly what I wanted. And, we got married. The funny story is that we got married in Apostolos Andreas Church and I was already pregnant. And my daughter was born on the day of the celebration of St Andreas, Apostolos Andreas, which is it's very sweet, actually. Yeah. That those two somehow connected.
There are, yes. We had the same connection we got married in St Ignatius Church. And then we hadn't realized, but we got engaged on his day. Yeah.
It's some of these things just fall into place. It's really nice, actually, because I'm a big believer, especially after we will get to that what we've been through. That we're not alone.
Absolutely. Well, let's. There's so many things. I've got a whole list of questions here to ask you. I don't know if we'll be able to cover everything, but let's get into COVID because it has been the hot topic for the last 3 years. And a lot of people want to forget it ever happened. And they're like, right, we've had the pandemic, but it's still there, still around. People are still being affected. And actually, I had someone else on this podcast, Professor Bohalis, who was on one of the first episodes, who lost his sister to COVID. And he was saying he doesn't know one person whose life has not been affected one way or another through this pandemic and this horrible virus. But I think out of everyone I know, you're up there as, one of the most. Let's tell everyone a little bit about your family experience with COVID.
Well, COVID. Well, I remember just before COVID really, came to surface, me and my husband were traveling. So for his birthday, I got him a present to go to Amsterdam, which we did. That was in February 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And
it all came out in March.
Somewhere there.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, I remember because I was going to have this big birthday, and then at the beginning of March was saying, "Oh yeah, what is this rubbish? Social media is exaggerating." Yeah. And then by middle of March, it went from, well, we won't go abroad. We'll have to have something in the mountains here. Then it went to, we'll have a dinner. And then in the end, I had a lockdown birthday.
Exactly. Yeah. So I remember we were traveling and, reaching Munich airport because we flew through Germany. Everyone was already in masks, and I was like, nah, we don't need masks. There's something happening, but, it's early still. And I don't think it's something serious. Whereas my husband on the flight, he actually wore the mask and I was more like cool about it. Anyhow, we had a holiday. It was amazing. And we came back and then it fell into March. And like you said, everything changed from March onwards. And, we made it through the pandemic. We didn't make it through the pandemic. I mean, we made it through the lockdowns and, you kept yourself occupied with the kids and we made the best of it. And, and you kind of think like, okay, it's very, very serious and it's very, very scary. I remember we would go to the supermarket and, disinfect every piece that we had bought. So we were very serious about it, in that regard. And, once the vaccines came to surface, we were basically saying we will wait for the FDA approval before we do the vaccine. And this is now falling into 2021. And I remember that it was, around June, I think, it was with the age slots, where you could get the vaccine and our slot had opened, but the FDA approval wasn't out. So we said to ourselves, okay, we won't get vaccinated until the FDA approves, which is sometime they had said maybe in November. Come June, my sister's daughter was, I think, the first to test positive. And, then we followed. Actually. And, before you know it, COVID's in your house and you can't reverse time. You can't change it. It's there, and you kind of say, okay, stay calm. I remember I tested negative all the time and I was already feeling really, really bad. And then I went again for testing and I remember waiting in the queue. You remember in the beginning, it was just so many people and I needed a chair to sit on because I couldn't even stand. And I was just waiting for my turn. And in the end, I tested positive, went obviously straight home. And my husband, he tested positive one day before me already. Then my kids tested positive and then the whole house was COVID. Okay. We got sick. I mean, like really, really sick. I mean, even the kids, I don't think they've ever been this sick before. We got the Delta variant and the kids, they're only little and, to see how old was Olivia? She was turning 7 at the time, with a flannel on her face because she couldn't cope with the pain in her head. And, same with my older daughter who was at the time 11. It's hard to see as a mother as well.
It's so hard. I mean, your kids are like mine, they're slim, they've got petite builds and then it only takes a day not to eat. Yeah. And they become like these, little sacks of bones and it just breaks your heart when they're there and they're just sobbing.
So fragile. Yeah. And it's a virus that we can't understand, and
it affects everybody differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people you were saying your neighbor, but who was vaccinated, got it at the same time and was on a treadmill.
He was on a treadmill on the balcony. He had moved his gym equipment because his wife, she wasn't positive at the time. He moved his treadmill to the balcony. He was working out while we were like feeling like we were literally dying at this time already. And, so I was at the beginning, I was strong, for the family, the mother taking care of my husband and the 2 girls who were sick.
So tough because you're sick yourself.
I was sick too. Yeah, exactly. And then at some point it just kind of reversed and I got worse than my husband. And then he took care of me, because I had pains that I had never had before. I mean, tingling under my skin. I was itchy. I was sitting there scratching my skin. I didn't even know where this pain was coming from. And I remember lying on the bed, just holding my head, and my eyes were burning and all these different symptoms. And as I said, the scary thing is you don't know what you're dealing with, actually. However, I managed to be in a better place, let's say, because my husband started getting worse. Suddenly his fevers were up. They were shooting to about 39.2, up and down, fluctuating. And the doctor had told us to keep an eye on our oxygen levels. And you're like, oxygen levels, you're kind of like oximeter, and all these things are, not known to you. I mean, when have you ever checked your oxygen when you had a flu or whatever? And you start getting this kind of fear of, why am I checking my oxygen? What's happening inside of me? So we had the oxygen machine. My husband started a really bad cough as well. And we started, both of us, getting these panic attacks because the body is fighting. I remember just falling off my bed and just throwing up. I couldn't even make it to the bathroom. We were just completely finished with the world. And my husband, in the end, he got bad, and the doctors sent home a oxygen machine because at the time of Delta, there was no availability in the hospitals. I mean, it was packed. So I called the COVID hotline and I asked them, and they asked me oxygen levels and what's his fever, and they asked me all sorts of questions. Very helpful, actually. And I told them everything, and they called me actually like 3 times through the night to check up on my husband, which I thought was very well organized, because you're afraid, because you are not seeing a doctor. There is no one there to actually check you. So you're fighting this, whatever this is, on your own. Anyway, at day 9, probably everything got really bad, where you would think that I've been fighting this for 9 days. It should be getting better. But my husband got a lot worse, and his oxygen started to drop, actually. So, we were on the bed, and I could still hear the beeping of this oximeter in my head, And when it starts going to dangerous levels, it makes a sound, basically. And the weird thing is that the nasty thing about COVID is that it fools around with you. It ridicules you, because we have 2 lungs. So sometimes his oxygen would be 92, 95, 98. And then suddenly you measure it again after half an hour and it's gone down to 83 and it's starting to do the beeping sound. Then the doctors were telling him to lie in the frontal position, which is, chest down on the bed, to bring the oxygen back up. So you're basically just experimenting all by yourself, hoping for the best. I remember, I think, around the 12th of July, I called the ambulance, to ask them if they could come and check Steph, because, we didn't know, how everything works anyway. And, in the end, Steph said, no, cancel the ambulance, because we're getting stressed. You don't know what you want at this point. Through the night, though, he got really bad. And my sister drove him in a convertible to the hospital because I couldn't. So she drove him to the hospital. They told him to wait outside. Of course, they wouldn't let him in. They said, look, we don't have a bed. We'll check you outside. So they checked him, but his oxygen was 92. So they wouldn't admit him at this point. They said, look, we have a baby coming in now with bad COVID. I mean, you thought you were in some kind of movie. So he came back home, went back to bed. And on the 16th, we had to call the ambulance. So 4 days we tried with the oxygen machine at home. The doctors were, in touch with us all the time. And even with the oxygen, we couldn't doctor around it ourselves anymore. We're not doctors. And I said to Steph,
and it kept dropping.
And then it was just dropping. And on the day actually we called the ambulance, it was starting to go to 80, the oxygen, which is way too low. We called the ambulance, and then on the 16th of July, and they came and picked him up. And it was the weirdest thing because we were all really sick. So, when the ambulance, they came and the nurses came inside, I said to them, oh, don't come inside. We've got COVID. And he's like, this is all we do all day.
Yeah.
This is, we have to.
They can't avoid it.
Yeah, they can't avoid it. And, we gave, my husband and the kids gave their dad this very quick bye, little kiss on the cheek. See you in like 5 days, because some of our friends were already also in hospital and they were saying, yeah, I went in, they gave me oxygen. antibiotics, and I'm back out. So we thought this will last 5 days. See you in 5 days. So he got in the ambulance and they took him to the general hospital. In the ambulance, he mentioned that his oxygen was already dropping and it was going closer to the 70 mark. So they put him directly on the oxygen machines, reached the hospital. There was no bed. So they had made, I think, one of the operating theaters they'd made into the people who had just arrived in one room. So he was there. They put him the drip. And, it's scary because you're in this it's not a hospital.
Yeah.
It's, and
makeshift area with people you don't know, without people that you love around you, on your own. And that's the thing about COVID. It's such a solitary virus.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're on your own. And then, you've got the doctors or the nurses in the PPE uniform, like you see on TV. That's what it is in the hospitals.
Yeah, and the hazmat suits and coming in. Yeah. And again, you lose that personal touch.
Exactly.
You're looking at someone through this wall.
Yes. And it's very, very scary. Okay, he had his mobile, so we were in touch.
Yeah.
And he was, in the end, he was admitted, into an actual room with other people. And you can't go visit, but you can go and drop off things, So my family at the time, they were well and vaccinated. So they were amazing. I mean, they were taking water bottles because you would have to bring your own water bottles or extra clothes, or you would have to drop off.
Yeah, take your own water bottles.
Yeah. You had to go and take water bottles. I mean, they had little cups of water.
Yeah.
But they were saying bring some water bottles, and I'm not sure how that works in the hospital in Cyprus, but we were told to bring hot water bottles. Steph had asked me for some flannels for his, for his head, and we delivered everything. But when you get there was the security, and the hospitals at this time are struggling. I mean, there was 5 wards of COVID at the hospital at the time, and there was mountains of people delivering things for their loved ones.
As well,
the general hospital, Mm-hmm. And there was a bunch of bags, and you would have to write where the patient is, and then they wouldn't go all the time upstairs because it was an infected area. So, but through this time, so they said to me, the doctors called me and they said, okay, your husband's been admitted. We will call you every day, once a day, and give you an update. So that's all you get, because there's also so many patients. They're not going to call you more than once and give you updates. At this time, again, Steph had his mobile though, so we were in touch. They tried with all their might to keep him with the oxygen mask that's just in the on the nose, covering the nose area. It was a very claustrophobic time for my husband because, as I said, you're shut off from the world. You're with other people in the room you don't know. They're either getting better, they're either getting worse, and you're hearing what they're talking. It's not just about you. It's something's happening to the other person, and you're thinking to yourself, this is going to happen to me. So, you got this panic, actually. And
psychologically, everyone concentrates on the physical effects, but it's not even side effects. The real disease is the mental and what happens in your mind.
Yeah, the psychology as well, because the nurses wouldn't come in all the time because they would have to change into this PPE uniform every single time. So, my husband would message me and say to me, can you please ask them to come because I feel this or I feel that, or, also the panic as well. I'm thirsty. Because no one would come. So, I was always in touch with the hospital asking, can you please check on my husband? He has this, or he doesn't feel comfortable. And they couldn't do it.
Horrible time for you as well.
Horrible. Yeah. And I'm stuck at home. You can't really do anything. You're on the phone.
And you're still ill.
I'm still ill.
And your girls are still recovering.
Yeah. And, in the end, I don't know after which day, but they had to put in the full face mask, which is probably the worst experience.
Which is what?
Which is a complete,
describe it.
It's basically, they come with a mask that covers your whole face, and it's tied up, and it's quite tight, actually, because no oxygen can escape this mask. It shouldn't. So you're in this oxygen mask, and there's a little hoover extension, let's say, giving you oxygen, but you have to wear it all the time. And you're in this claustrophobic, and you can't just take it off yourself.
Yeah.
And then they would make it tighter as well. And they didn't have enough oxygen masks at the time. So my husband was calling me and saying, I need to change it. And I couldn't understand what he was saying because he was in the mask. So it all sounded like, and he was panicking and I couldn't help, and this is, I think, things that really stuck with us today, that moment of when you are helpless and you have no control. I can't do anything for you and he can't do anything for himself. And you're trying to calm this other person down. And he said, please talk to someone, anyone. I need a different mask. And, because they were short on these things, because of the overload of COVID, they would, try and make the mask more comfortable with different man-made ways. They would stick like a sponge or like gauzes under his head so it's not so tight, but would give him a really bad headache. So the whole set of this whole thing was just a nightmare for him. And he would call me up at, 3 a.m. and I would see, it's a video call. I would see the whole scene of what people don't believe or didn't believe at the time is real. There were the people like, it's just the flu, or this isn't real. This PPE uniform, it's all fabricated and they're trying to scare us and I can tell you from firsthand, everything that we have seen on TV is real. People were saying like, they were fainting in the streets. Yes, because when I remember how I felt, even just waiting for the rapid test to be done, as I said, I was so ill, I couldn't stand. I was on the chair. If you had filmed me at the time, I would be that person probably collapsing in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So it is real. And, so after 5 days of a struggle, so days 16th of July till the 21st of July, during the last few days before the 21st of July, the doctors were telling me your husband's deteriorating. It's getting critical. So you're like thinking all kinds of things. Number one, I didn't say a proper bye to my husband. That was just a kiss on the cheek. This can't be it. The kids, the same. What do I tell the kids? They're hoping and they're sick themselves. So they directly have the fear of, is this going to happen to me? And what can we do? We're dealing with the virus we know nothing about. I know people who have already died from this virus and there's absolutely nothing I can do. I can't even get to him if I wanted to. So on the 21st of July, the doctor calls me in the morning and he said, look, this was my daughter's birthday as well. And this marked actually the 2 weeks that I had COVID and I was allowed to test. And if I was negative, get out. Mm-hmm. So my family all came to my house with rapid tests. I did the rapid test. It was negative. And we were still careful. But, they brought a cake for my daughter because I had nothing. My sister, she did all the shopping for presents and everything. And they did a nice little thing for my daughter. We video called my husband singing happy birthday. But he just about made it through the phone call because he was in the full face mask and, he was weak at this time. And basically when your body is struggling, there's only so much you can take. And
emotionally, I mean, I can't even imagine being in that type of physical pain and emotional and psychological condition and then seeing your daughter at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone.
Yeah,
my family.
Try and celebrate and you want to be there with your little girl.
Exactly. Yeah. And the doctors called me around this lunchtime and they said, look, it looks like today we will need to intubate. And I was like, what's intubate?
Does that mean?
What does that mean? So they said, basically, we're going to put your husband into an induced coma because his body is not responding. He's deteriorating. It's critical. And his left lung is getting worse and worse. And, we've tried everything and we're going to give him, it's this special, I'm not sure, it's like a shake, they called it at the time, which my cousin confirmed. It's a type of medicine, but it's like super expensive and they only give it they have to wait for the certain time to give this medication. We'll try give him that. And if his body responds to it, maybe we can wait a few more days. Well, his body didn't respond to it. They gave the shake and he even messaged me. I remember saying I had this really weird thing given to me. I don't know what it was. No, he didn't know what was happening. He didn't know. And I had to call my husband's mother and
get a tissue. This is too emotional for me.
Sorry. Maybe we should move the tissue cord.
Oh, yeah. I'll put it here.
Please, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had to call his mother and warn her that this might happen. And I just remember her heartbreaking cry through the phone. And she was saying, I don't want to lose my son. And you're finally at the knees of this virus. You're like, this is real,
and it's really happening.
And it's happening. But you're saying to yourself, this can't be happening to me. To me, this can't be happening to me. I've seen it on TV, and me, or my husband. And, my dad, he turned around, he said, look, given the circumstance, I think you should come and live with us. Just in case. We weren't sure what was happening. It was lunchtime at the time. Pack your bags, you're all negative, and come with us home. I packed up, and we went to my mom and dad's house. We were still in touch with my husband by message and, everything. And I didn't tell him anything because I wasn't allowed anyway to say anything. And at nighttime, I think it was about 9:30. The nurse
So
called
you hadn't
him.
told Steph that you were at your parents', that you'd moved there?
No, I did tell him.
Yeah,
He knew that
yeah.
I had moved out because I was
Yeah.
negative and I said I'm weak,
Yeah.
you know, and
It's
I
better
didn't
to go
tell him,
stay. Yeah.
you know, I was, you know, afraid because I didn't know what the next steps would be.
Mm-hmm.
And at about 9:30, the nurse called me and he said, look, the doctors are going to call you and we're going to intubate your husband. So I was like, my God, it's 9 o'clock at night or 9:30. And I was and my mind had said, you know, maybe this isn't going to happen, you know, because it's nighttime. And you think
You
like
hope.
the world is now, you know, we all go to bed kind of thing and nothing else happens. But it's not like that. The hospitals, they don't stop, you know. And she said, you can't say anything to your husband and the doctor will call you and you have 10 minutes to talk to your husband because that's all they get, because they have to intubate directly because the patient panics, because you have to go and tell them what you're about to do. So the doctor calls me and he says, call your husband. We're ready. So I video called him. And I asked him, did the doctor come to see you? And he's like, no, you know, and he was in his mask and it was dark and it was night and we were all
And there's
sitting.
someone else in the room as well.
There's someone else in the room. And he said, no, he seemed very confused. I don't know if they had given him maybe a sedative already. I'm not sure. And I said to him, are you sure? He said, no, why? What's wrong? And I said, okay, let me just call the nurse because they wanted to check on something. I had to make up something because I wasn't allowed to panic, you know, to create panic. Yeah. So we hung up. I called the nurse. I said, are you sure the doctor went and spoke to Steph already? She said, yeah, but he might be confused because they panicked. They shut down because you just told them you're going to put them in a coma. And I called him again and he still seemed confused. Yeah. So I called the doctor myself. I said, doctor, are you sure? I asked him if you've gone to see him. He said, yeah. Call him and we're going to proceed. So I call him again. And then when I asked him.
And all of these phone calls are eating up on the minutes. You've got 10 minutes. And so
exactly.
Every time you're talking to a doctor, you're like, now I've got 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes left to talk to my husband.
Yeah. And you're counting. And then not only that, I wasn't going to be the only one to talk to him. He would want to speak to his parents, his sisters, his brother. I don't know. I had to squeeze everyone into those 10 minutes. And, you know, so I called him again and the doctor had told him. And I just remember him shaking his head. He didn't want it. And a few hours earlier, I remember him messaging me. I don't feel I'm getting better. I'm scared and I don't want to die. What was I to say? You know, so the phone call happened. I called him up and he just shook his head. And I had to be the strongest I think I've ever been in my life because I had to convince my husband that everything was going to be okay and that this is the right decision because nobody knew, is this the right decision? Yeah. You know, and you have gone through this conspiracy of they're just killing you in the hospitals and all these come back to your mind and everything is playing back up, going through you. But you don't have a choice. No, you cannot question the doctors. You have to just, in the end, trust.
They're the professionals and you have to trust.
You have to trust. Yeah. And when I spoke to the doctor, I trusted him, you know, and throughout it all, even until this stage, all the doctors at General Hospital, Limassol, Nicosia, have been amazing, you know. So I said goodnight to my husband as such. I remember his phone was last online at 10:23 at night. My girls had to say goodnight to Dad.
Oh, that.
Because I explained it to Amelia and my thank God, my dad, who's always, you know, the rock of the family, he explained it to my younger daughter because I wouldn't be able to do it and stay strong to actually look into this little girl's face and explain this to her. So my dad did it and she was so strong, you know, to say
What did your dad say?
He said, you know, Daddy's not, you know, he's not well and the doctors are going to give him a special medicine and he's going to be sleeping so that his body can recover. And she said, is he going to be okay? And, you know, you kind of have to say, yes, what you're going to say. And he said, you have to be really strong for Daddy now. And you're going to tell him everything is going to be okay. And then, you know. So she did. She did amazing. I mean, you know, for a 12-year-old child to have to deal with that. And, you know, you see in the background, it was a video call. You see mask, machines beeping, you know, having to do that. And we all, you know, my dad also said to my husband, you know, a friend of his has recently been through it. he was in a coma for 7 days and now he's out and about and he's well again. You know, you tell the best of stories you can.
You cling to hope and the positive stories. You have to. Yeah.
And I had to hang up so that there would be a chance for his parents to call. And, you know, you have to, it's the weirdest moment, really, because you're not sure. Is this the last time we're going to speak, see each other, you name it. And then 10:23, I realized his phone was taken away from him and they put him in the coma, which, you know, you research all these things. I mean, what is intubate? You know, what do they actually do? Because you have absolutely no idea. And they did it. And then they called me from the hospital. Then you break into tears, of course. I mean, me and my daughters had to deal with that pain. And family is everything, you know. I mean, if I didn't have my family around me this night, I don't know if I would have had to call a mental institution. But they called me and they said, we have loaded, I mean, listen to this. I mean, we have loaded your husband into the ambulance. So I'm just imagining my husband's sleeping body now, connected to a ventilator because his body the machine had to breathe oxygen for him. Yeah. Connected to a ventilator, driving in an ambulance all the way to Nicosia and reaching Nicosia. So I was next to the phone waiting for that call that he finally reaches the hospital in Nicosia because they didn't have at the time an ICU of COVID in Limassol, which again is something nobody knew. So they said, we're loading him and we'll take him to Nicosia.
And all of this you're finding out for the first time.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's not like,
completely clueless.
He's going to go into a coma and this and this and this will happen. No, at every stage.
Every stage. You find out something new. So they send him off to Nicosia and he arrives and then they confirm him. I think he arrived in the end about 2 a.m. And, the doctor who actually intubated him, we're still in touch with him. He's still Steph's doctor now. And he said, Steph asked him, how was I when you intubated me? He said, well, you were scared. And you said to me, I've done a mistake, which is what he said most patients do at the point of intubation because most of these were not vaccinated. And they just say, I should have. Can you, I mean, he said some people even say, can you vaccinate me now? And you have to say it's too late.
We had that with a member of our staff that was quite a vocal anti-vaxxer and then was hit quite badly. I think probably similar case to Steph. And that's what he was just begging, vaccinate me. They said, we can't. It's too late.
It's too late. Yeah. And you have no choice. You can't go back. As I said, once COVID's in your house, it's in your house. And the doctor told us that at that night, you're calling because you have to book in Nicosia, your place. Yeah. Hospitals were overflowing. Yeah. Full. Delta was a mess. And he said, I had to secure your bed. And they were basically, they weigh my patient is 53. Yes, but my patient is 42. So they were coming from different districts. Larnaca or Aminohori or Limassol.
Who gets priority?
They had to, weigh the cases. And anyhow, he was admitted in Nicosia. And then it's just, they call you and then they say, look, the doctor again will call you once a day. They'll speak to you for 3 minutes and that's all you get. That's it. So you're waiting by the phone. You're basically dying the rest of the day. Then you get that 5 minutes when you don't know when they'll call because it's usually around lunchtime, but it could be one day, 1 o'clock. The next day it's 2:30. So I was just like, my phone was next to me and I was just like shaking. By the time it hit about 12 o'clock, I was a wreck because, I didn't know what that phone call would entail. So they called me every day and they started turning my husband around. I'm like, what do you mean you turned him? They would flip him to his stomach and leave him there for hours and then flip him back. So they keep flipping the patients basically to help the oxygen. All the whilst, of course, still on the ventilator.
And bed sores, I guess, and everything.
Bed sores really bad, yeah. And they called me initially, this was on the 21st, they intubated. Around the 27th, I think they called me. Was it 27th? Anyway, nonetheless, they called me and they said, we've reached an okay stage with your husband. We're going to wake him up. I was like, oh,
so
amazing.
That was on day 6?
No, I'm not sure exactly what day. I think it was, maybe 6-7 days intubation. And while my husband was asleep, let's say in this coma, I basically went to every church on the island nearly. I was just praying and I remember myself just crying in front of the icons. Please help me. I don't want to lose my husband. And so they said I could come to Nicosia and they need some things for him. So, shower, shampoo, deodorant, all these things.
And his favorite ones.
And you pack a little bag and, you're excited, but it's not the end in any way. That was just a little step because the COVID was like, if anything, was a roller coaster. I didn't want to actually get on. And it was like, good news, bad news, good news, bad news. So I went to Nicosia. We delivered the things and they had woken him up and they actually let me in, saying that while I was waiting, because, you have to be specially admitted to go upstairs to the ICU. Waiting outside, it's just like on TV. I was seeing the doors open and these beds coming out with the nurses in their PPE uniform, carting out people who had died with a black leather cover over the bed. And you're just like panicking, and you're there and you're scared. I mean,
it's really like a sci-fi movie or
really
a horror
is.
movie or I don't know what genre, but it
exactly
living that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lift dedicated to COVID, and then they would just cart this, you're just sitting there waiting and then these, watching bodies in front of you. Yeah. And, when they did let me in, you have like 10 minutes. I mean, you don't get much time and you see, your loved one through a glass window. So, going towards the area where they had about 10 people in one room and then there were single file rooms. So you're walking down this aisle and there's windows left and right and you see a bunch of sick people basically connected to, I don't know how many pipes and machines and they're upside down, I mean, it's a movie. Like you said, it's a horror movie and the nurses, they are tired. You can tell they are tired. They're working hard and I don't know how they did it, and they did it even with love. I have to say, I mean, they were, touching the patients and, I gave the nurses holy oil and icons and they took the time. They went, to my husband, they poured holy oil and they said a prayer. I mean, through all of this, the kindness of humanity, that's where you see that there is still the humanity and kindness is still there. And I remember just standing there and he had woken up, but he was already much thinner than what I remember. And, when he saw me, he realized I was there. He doesn't remember it now, but he lifted his hands, which was, I think like lifting 200 kilos. He had no strength, but he lifted his hands to me and he made a heart shape.
Oh,
yeah. And the nurse came and told me that he whispered that, he loves me. He doesn't remember any of this though now. And, I was just staying there with, again, me too, with my, my mask and my protective, face, shield. And, I was just standing there, was just praying nonstop. Anyway, we left and, I think he was awake maybe maximum a day and a half. They had to put him back under again. Well, actually, they called me the next day and they said, we're moving him from the upstairs ICU to the downstairs ICU. And I thought, maybe this means something, so I got there, I saw him and he was actually a little bit better.
So that's like a good thing? Or
that was at the time, it was a different unit and it was people in this unit because again, I was allowed to see him for 10 minutes and they gave me a walkie-talkie.
Okay.
And they took it, the other walkie-talkie, the nurse came and they took it to him and I was allowed to say something to him, but he was out of it. He couldn't move much. He had no idea what was going on around him. He was completely lost, and, you're looking and you're like separated by this glass to your loved one and you can't get through this glass. You can't do anything.
It's so frustrating because they're there really? And you're like, why can't I?
Yeah. Why
it's like a prison.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a prison.
And there was like maybe 10, 15 patients next to him, flipped. Some people had the tracheostomy already, some people were asleep. It was a whole different, you're not just looking at your loved one, you're looking at all the pain that was going on in there. I remember leaving and just crying for everyone going through this. Anyway, I left again that day and I came again the next day. The next day arriving at the hospital, I was waiting for like an hour and my mom had come with me. My sisters had come with me who were my assigned drivers during this time because I was unable to drive. I was weak myself and I was complete panic and a mess. So blessed, they were driving me all over Cyprus to the hospitals, to the churches. And, so then they wouldn't let me in. And I said to my sisters, my mom, I said, something's wrong. They're not letting me in. And, there was other people there, other people are crying. Other people are desperate and you're just suddenly joining these strangers in this misery you're in. And I called the nurse. I'm like, is everything okay? It's been like an hour and 20 minutes by now. I'm still not laying. Is my husband okay? She said, the doctor will call you. And I already didn't like that. She's like, go up to the cafeteria because the doctors are still in with the patient. He'll call you. And when he called me, I realized directly something was up. He said, look, your husband again is deteriorating. It's critical. I need to intubate him again. So this is the second time they intubated him. And he had already been intubated, actually. He intubated. And he said, I will do a tracheostomy, which I was like, what is that? And it's basically they open here and they bring the pipes in from there to suck out all the phlegm. Anyway, I had...
And I think from that there's a chance people don't speak afterwards.
Yes, like it could do damage to your vocal cords, or it could do like whispering, like maybe not the same power.
Yeah.
And so, I started crying in the middle of the hospital. And even the security lady, she came running to me. She gave me a hug. I mean, complete strangers, were coming up to me. And I said, this can't be. I mean, we were all crying. This is impossible. Get better, get worse, deteriorating.
Yeah.
And then you have that hope that once he's woken up, this must be it, right? It must be getting better. But it wasn't. It was still.
You think it's a linear path in one direction, not a yo-yo or,
Exactly. So, I remember I left the hospital and I just look at the hospital and you're in this despair, and I saw this white pigeon flying over the hospital, completely peaceful by itself. And, I stopped crying and I said to my sister, look, that bird is so peaceful. I wish I was that bird. I said to her, so you know what? Can you take me to Ios Ambrosios? There's a church, Ios Ephrem. And I had somehow really connected to that saint. He was suddenly everywhere in my life. I would, be in traffic. There would be a car next to me and the icon would be in his car. It would be on my Facebook. It would be on anywhere. People would say, have you heard of Saint Ephrem? Pray to Saint Ephrem. And he was just everywhere. I said, let's go to Saint Ephrem, to the church. And so she drove me up there. I saw the Bader and there was someone there and I was crying in front of the icon. And I remember the biggest tears dropping on the floor of the church. And they came and they asked me, what's wrong? So such nice people. And I told them and they told me what to pray, how to pray. They taught me so many things with the rosary, and I said, okay, I will pray this way. They gave me the book of Ios Ephrem, the special prayer. And it was like 23 pages long of old Greek. And I was like, okay, I'll try. We went outside and then over the mountains, in Ios Ambrosios, it's like beautiful landscape. There was a white bird again flying around. And I said to my sisters, look at that. There's a bird again, the white bird. Anyway, we left the church and I said, look, since we're in the area, let's go to my house. I need a few things for the kids and maybe I should start Steph's car because he loves his car. And, I didn't want the battery to die or anything. Do something productive. Yeah. I went home and I packed the girls' stuff. I got into my husband's car and I was really angry. There was masks everywhere. There was antiseptic. There was things against COVID. And I felt this anger. I was like, none of this works. None of it works. And I remember I left the door open so I wouldn't get panicky. And I'm in the driveway now, so it's wall to wall. I left the door open and I'm crying and I'm angry. And suddenly a white feather lands on my lap. I still have it. I should have brought it to show you guys. But a white feather lands on my lap and I just stopped crying. And I get this feather and I just said, we're not alone. Someone is listening to me, to my prayers or my despair. And I prayed nonstop. I tell you, I didn't want to lose my husband. There's nothing I could do besides that. I'm not a doctor. Trust the doctors, pray. That was the to-do list. Yeah. And I tell you, I went into this mode where I was at nighttime just praying. I had candles on, icons everywhere, and you get into this. It's like a meditation almost. It's dark and you're tired, you're half asleep, yet you're praying to the rosary. I was doing every bead 3 times to the Holy Mary, 3 times to Saint Ephrem. Continuous. And my dad, he kept saying to me, because I was you're always upset and you're always crying and you're saying to yourself, why is this my life suddenly? Like, this can't be my life. I was driving in the streets and I would see families eating lunch together. And I would be, not in a bad way, jealous, but I would be like the most random, simple things we take for granted. Just sitting together. Husband and wife, children. it's suddenly taken away from you. And you're just now fighting all the time. And I could lose that I might not ever have that again. And I think this is something that people don't realize until something shakes you, I think, because I didn't realize this myself, you know? I wasn't that, okay, yes, you say to yourself, life is short. We all know it. Life is short, and you have the speech, we should appreciate, but it's a different level now, because now, it's a whole different ball game, because it can be actually taken away from. It's not just a concept, it's not just an idea.
And an empty slogan.
Yeah. Exactly.
Life is short. Ha ha ha. Let's move on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Let's go out.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so this was on, Friday. They called me from the hospital and they said, we are not intubating. I said, why? They said, because your husband has a high fever, so we can't proceed. I said, how? So this means basically he's getting worse and they can't even do the thing that would make him better. So, okay, that's Friday. Sunday night, I'm sleeping, or somewhat sleeping. My phone rings at 2 a.m. in the morning and it says ICU Nicosia. So I'm thinking this is the call where they tell me my husband has died. 2 a.m. in the morning. That can only mean that. I jump out of bed and I answer the phone and the nurse goes, yes, Mrs. Marie, I'm just calling to inform you that we have loaded your husband into the ambulance and he's coming back to Limassol. What? I said, do you have the right patient? She said, yes, Stefanos Makhlouzaridis. They will call you from Limassol Hospital when he arrives. I said, this doesn't make any sense. Anyway, wake up my sister, tell her this and this has happened. They're bringing me the body. They're not bringing me my husband alive. They're calling me, they're not telling me, and they're going to call me from Limassol to tell me it's my husband's body to come and collect. Complete panic. I called Limassol Hospital. They didn't know anything. They were like, there's a patient coming, but I don't have Stefanos' name. Again, this calling. Nicosia, are you sure? Limassol, where's my husband? This is now like 4 a.m. in the morning. Eventually at 4:30, I'm starting during this time, of course, praying again. At 4:30, the hospital calls me in Limassol and they said, your husband has arrived. He's just been, they've admitted. He's settled in the ICU. And I tell him the whole story because I'm thinking this and this has happened. And just so you know, like I'm the doctor now. I had learned everything.
Yeah.
He's like, I know. I have all the papers here. Don't worry. And then tomorrow come in for appointment. I said, okay. Anyway, hang up the phone, couldn't sleep, called the hospital at 7 a.m. There was a office number they had given me. Didn't answer until about 8 a.m. And she said, okay, give me your name and you need to go to the post-COVID ward. Post-COVID ward. Okay. So I go to the hospital. I didn't know what to expect. So again, my family's taking me to the hospital and I'm standing outside the ICU. And this nurse comes out and there's now, I don't know how many families, 10 families, and everyone's crying about something else. Some, yes, post-COVID, some from a car crash, some from different stories started to mingle outside the ICU and I was completely lost. And the nurse, she opens the door and she calls out names. And then they give us this uniform to wear, this protective uniform, again, gloves and masks, and they antiseptified us. And she said, okay, everybody come in. And I was really lost. I mean, nothing made sense to me. And I walk in and then I just freeze. And I see my husband opposite, without glass, without window, without a wall separating me. And the nurse comes up to me. She's like, are you okay? I said, it's my husband. She said, go to him. You can go to him. So I couldn't believe it. I was completely shocked. I didn't know because you don't know, do you?
Yeah.
And I walked up to him and she said, you can take his hand. He was intubated at the time, of course. And I took his hand and he looked so different. He was skinny, different color, and he had marks of bed sores on his feet, on his knees, on his, he looked like he'd just been through war, basically.
I remember you telling me he had one
on his back.
That looked like a shark bite.
Shark bite. It was huge. It was about 30 centimeters by 8 centimeters deep with 8 tunnels going, which all had created from dead skin and dead skin tissue, actually. And, but I didn't know this at the time because he was on his back. He was lying on his back. And, she said, from now on, you can come and visit every day. And, he is now post-COVID. So basically they kept testing. What I didn't know is they kept testing in Nicosia. Once they test negative, they send him back to, Limassol ICU, which they have. They just didn't have COVID ICU. And he was in the ICU. So, again to cut a story a bit shorter, you speak to the doctors face to face finally, and they give you the update and you see, your loved ones. But again, connected to so many different machines. Again, your husband on the ventilator. And the doctor said, we're going to wake him up. He's doing quite well and see how it goes. They woke him up. When he woke up at first, he was very, very lost. And, he didn't really know how long he'd been asleep or what he'd really been through, but he knew who I was and everything, thank God. And the good thing is that he actually woke up, because there was other patients that never woke up. I mean, there was a mother of another lady who was with me and she just never woke up. They tried, but she had beaten COVID, but after the coma, she just didn't come to. So I was just, already happy that he woke up. It was the third time he woke up. Yeah. Even small wins.
But they're huge.
You're so right. Yeah. Small wins. Yeah. And I was able to, take care of him. So I could, I could bring him lunch, which I wasn't actually giving him lunch. It was just the whole concept of he could slowly start eating, let's say, a yogurt and give him a spoon of, not that he really wanted to eat, to be honest. And, and then you leave the ICU and you go and talk to the doctor. He talks to you face to face and then you're going again. Again, next couple days, again, Steph is not doing well. Again, so the road, we haven't even reached the end yet. We're still fighting at this point. His left lung is just struggling so much, and it was like these, if you see it on scan, it's like these spider webs all over the lung. And, in the physio, basically, he couldn't cope with the physio. He got a fever. I remember him, coming to the hospital. He was under a bunch of sheets and freezing and he couldn't move and, not looking well at all. And they said, look, once he's okay, we're going to intubate again. So I couldn't believe it. I said, this has got to be a joke. It can't be so many steps. I mean, what are we fighting with?
What is this? Yeah.
What is this? And, okay, on the one hand, you're just happy that you've made it so far and that he's back in Limassol now. On the other hand, though, we're not finished yet. There's still things that can happen and people in the ICU were still dying. I mean, it was around us. They were carting people out. You're still surrounded by, families who are crying. And suddenly you realize there is this world. And then even now, when I drive past the General Hospital, the pain that's there, what I've seen of the families suffering, until you live it, I don't think you understand how blessed we are that every day we are healthy and we don't have to deal with it. And I hope, touch wood, that I wish that for everybody, because it's a whole different ballgame. Really? And the nurses.
Not to take anything for granted,
nothing.
Ever.
And the nurses and the doctors and how hard they work. I mean, and they were all lovely and really loving to the patients. It's, it made me happy. I don't know how it is in other countries. Again, I'm German but I have to say that in Cyprus, from what I've seen, they were with a lot of love taking care of the patients, but yeah,
which, was a support I'm sure you so valued because, you're going through all of this, but you're not just a couple, you're a family. Yeah. And you've got two girls that need you and they need their dad.
Exactly. And I was reading up on, how to make your loved one more comfortable in ICU because, again, they're alone most of the time. And so I brought from home a pillow that has us printed on it. I brought photos from the kids to the hospital. And, you try your best. And
again, small wins.
Again. Then they intubated and then I had to sign that they do the tracheostomy. I had to sign for this. No idea what this means, but I trust you and you do what you need to do. Complete trust to the doctors. They did it. Tracheostomy was a success. They, managed to suction a lot of the phlegm that was, accumulated in there. And from that moment of the tracheostomy, it did such a difference. But you can't do a tracheostomy too early. So unfortunately, a lot of patients also died because they didn't get to the stage where you can actually do a tracheostomy because you have to make it to that point to be able to have it done to you. And from that moment, the tracheostomy was done. We started getting better results and he was starting to get stronger. And then on the 28th of August, so he was admitted on the 16th of July. On the 28th of August, he moved to a normal room in the general hospital. And he left the hospital finally on the 1st of September. So from July to September was
Over
quite
a month and a half.
long road. But yeah, he came back with bed sores, which they have in all the countries, because there's not much they can do about it, because they need to turn the patients, and they care more about the oxygen than skin problems.
Yeah.
But this wound has just now closed.
And I remember you saying when he did finally come home, he was obviously downstairs, and it took 3 months before he could even do stairs.
Yeah. I mean, we had the doctor, they said, look, our recommendation is to send him to rehab. But me telling my husband they want to send you to rehab, he was like,
no, I want to go home.
I want to go home. And now the medicine I need is my family.
Yeah.
I'll bring the physiotherapist home and we do everything from home. And the doctor said, if you can set up a rehab type of looking hospital room, because you need a hospital bed, you need a wheelchair, you need, the whole ensemble, toilets, nappies. I mean, you're taking home a different person, and I, with the help of course, my husband's family calling, to find a hospital bed, and then my family coming to set it up. And it was a whole family effort, but we did it. My whole living room went into a hospital room. And, I had to take care of him, because he couldn't move. I mean, my sister moved in and he couldn't even turn left or right. We needed to put a sheet under him and turn him with bed sheets, because he was, let's say, vegetable, actually, and super skinny. He had no power and he needed complete recovery. Physiotherapists were coming. The nurse was coming. We had the wound, which just to clean the wound took about an hour a day just to do that. And then, there's the panic and all the medicine. And you have to, like you said, the psychology, you have to heal the psychology as well.
Yeah.
And of the children, of course, because they see their dad had come home. We did the ambulance brought him home, and we did the clap out. The neighbors came out and they all clapped, and, they brought him into the house, and we ordered a cake and it said COVID 0, Steph Mac 1, like a football field. It was nice because he's into football. And, we celebrated, but as you said, like COVID, yes, we won COVID, but the aftermath took way longer still to cope with. But, I'm so grateful that it was beaten virus,
You did it.
We did it
as a family.
As a family.
Did it. Team effort.
Yeah. And, I said, I'm going to get a tattoo now, because my dad, I remember him pointing at me. And when I was just falling apart, he kept saying, with this, he was pointing at me and he was saying, never lose hope. Never. And it was almost like he was telling me off, but he was trying to get that strength up, and I was like, okay, he's like, promise me, you have your hope. Never lose it. And I said, yes. And,
that's the only thing we're left with. Pandora's box.
Yeah, exactly. And, okay, now you have the aftermath of COVID, long COVID, post-COVID. We all have, I have it. Steph has it, of course. Neurological and...
so many people I know. I mean, I didn't get COVID nearly as bad as you. I had it twice, but I was vaccinated, triple vax. But yeah, I mean, 6 months later, I was still having, breathing and
I still have it. That deep breath. Yeah. Sometimes I just can't get it. And it's just frustrating, frustrating. And my husband has neurological issues that remained. Some of his fingers don't work. He has no feel to them. And, the doctors don't know how long this will last.
It's the unknown.
It's the unknown. Yeah. But, you hear COVID now and you're a lot more comfortable with the concept COVID. It's scary, when you feel unwell and you have to do a COVID test. For us is a bit of a anxiety moment.
And hopefully the new strains are not as
exactly.
As,
but I just hope
severe.
That nothing comes back or gets worse or
something else emerges.
Or nothing else emerges. Yeah.
So if you could, I mean, I think you've already answered that, but if you could rewind time, would you all go and get vaccinated?
It's an interesting question. Because of what happened, my life has changed. I'm not happy it happened to me, but I have become such a different human that, I'm not glad. I don't know how to place it now. No, I'm not glad it happened, but it's changed me into a better person, into a better human. I like to think so, at least. And, as a family as well, and, nearly a month ago, I was baptized Greek Orthodox, which I was always like Greek Orthodox anyway, because I came from such a young age. And then I got baptized following this. And it was, everything kind of, falls into a different place, like even as far as marriage is concerned, because you have a whole different respect of,
of the sanctity of the
of
meaning.
the sanctity of family, of values, of things that you used to fight over is meaningless, and, sometimes you fall back into that pattern. I'm like, that upset me. And then you're like, nah,
who cares?
Exactly. It's
Look
so
at the
not
big
worth
picture.
it. Look at the big picture. Exactly. So, but yeah, I always say now, if you ask me, yes, get vaccinated.
100%. You'd advise everyone get vaccinated, guys. Yeah. Save yourself from this. But,
yes.
But having gone through this, definitely you'll take the positives.
Exactly.
And you guys did come through it. You did it. He was a fighter as well. Yeah. You fought.
Definitely.
What a story.
Long story. I'm sorry.
What? No,
very long.
My goodness. I know you could write a book and that's just a snippet of it. Yeah. We haven't even, because those nearly 2 months and then you went through so much more, but that's not 2 months. That's 60 days or that's, I can't even think, all of those minutes to calculate, all those seconds and every single one of those, that's just holding on to that hope. Yeah. And
time doesn't pass. It's like literally slowed down. That felt like 2 years.
Absolutely.
To me.
Yeah.
Like I've lost 2 years
probably
of my
even
life.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I'm glad that people also being here, that, they realize that COVID's, real. It's not a joke.
Absolutely. I know so many people, that have lost people to COVID or their lives have completely changed and they hear other people say, it's just a flu. And they're like, no, it's not just a flu. Like, wake up, everyone. Like, how much have we lost? And it's not a lie. It's not like, they're showing a different movie scene, but that's not really happening. No, it is. Like,
exactly.
It is.
It is happening.
And it's that, my huge take from COVID, of course, we all had it in the family, it affected everyone differently. But we celebrated, I think it was, October. So it was Leon's birthday and Michael was just in his room upstairs. Oh. So the rest of us were doing the cake and I had him on FaceTime and he was fine. He was upstairs. Yeah. But it was so sad, as you said, taking for granted those families, the simplest thing, like blowing a cake out at home. Yeah. And then the other thing that we had, was, I don't know, did I tell you the story of the glass dropping on the kids? So
it's starting to ring a bell.
I had a few nightmares with glass in my house. Again, touch wood now that nothing else happens. But the kids were in the shower. I said, all right, guys, you're done. Just finish up and I'll go down and get your dinner ready. And I went downstairs and suddenly I heard this smash and then silence. And it's the silence.
Silence is
I'll
the
never
worst.
forget that. Like that
silence. Crying
and then I
screaming.
just ran upstairs and as I was running upstairs, the screams hit. Oh. And then I see only one child at the top of the stairs bleeding, like naked, wet, just bleeding. But alive. And I'm like, where's the other one? Right. And I run and then I found the second child again. And they were like, I don't know if you remember in Twilight when the vampire and the glittery diamond. That was my kids.
What?
It's just sprinkled with glass dust. Like, and then glass shards in them. And then just because they were wet as well, the blood. So our nanny was nearly fainting. I was like, take the baby. The Michael couldn't. He just, poor guy, was like ready to faint. And anyway, long story short, because I don't want to make that about me, but I just put them straight into the bath and moved them into another bath. And then just told them, close your eyes. And I just rinsed them so that the glass would come off because I was worried about their eyes. And then I said, get me towels. I put them down. I started plucking glass out of them. But we had COVID.
Oh.
And I was like, who is going to see us now? Because I realized, especially with Leon, he had quite bad cuts on his shoulder. Oh. And, where it's so clear, it's like just you open a page, like his shoulder was open. It was a clear cuts, several. I think there were 7 in the end. And I said, no one will see us. Yeah. We're COVID positive. And, they wouldn't. We called doctors, hospitals. They said no. And then I said, well, what
am I to do?
What, I can't fix this now. And I'm a fixer and a planner. And I'm like, I can't fix this. I can't stitch this up.
Yeah.
And then Michael was screaming. I was like, call your aunt, call your uncle. Well, thank goodness we have in the family doctors, but they're old, older people, older doctors.
Yeah.
But they were our angels at that time. They were actually at a dinner and they said, right, we'll see you. They put triple masks on. They opened their surgery.
Oh, thank God.
And we went in with the masks and Leon, they were stitching him for an hour.
Wow.
It was
imagine.
Yeah, it was imagine. And that's what I told everyone afterwards. I said, it's not just about COVID.
It's not just about, it's a whole,
maybe we shouldn't, we'll get lots of comments after this about to be vaccinated, not to be but this is the honest thing. And I said, look, when you decide you don't want to get vaccinated and maybe for you, it will only be a cold, but you'll pass it on to someone else who will end up like Stefan also, or will end up my kids who will have another accident that's nothing related to COVID and we can't help them because of this, or they've got something else and they can't get into a bed. Or my mother-in-law, her oxygen went to 40% and she went into intensive care. My dad went twice to the clinic and they said if he'd gone in the next morning and not that night, he wouldn't have made it. These are real stories.
Real stories.
And, and that's how, but it's not just COVID. It's everything else that is the long term. But thank goodness my kids were okay. My son has some nice, it's on his right shoulder. Nice, sexy scars.
I was going to say he feels sexy.
Thank goodness it's not on his face.
Sexy.
And one day he'll be like, whoa.
I was swimming with a shark.
I said, there's a woman out there that one day is going to be like, whoa, that's my man with his scars.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, tell me your story.
Exactly.
So bless them. But it's definitely been a crazy few years.
It has.
Yeah, and I think your story will definitely be someone else's survival guide. And thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you for being interested in it, actually.
I think everyone will be interested in it. I always ask people this. Do you have a favorite quote, especially after what you've been through? I know you've just said about hope.
Yeah.
Never give up for hope. But.
It's the one that my kids love, even actually from Kung Fu Panda. I'm sure that's not the one that they didn't make.
I think I mentioned it on this podcast already. I love it.
Hold on. Yesterday is a mystery.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift, which is why they call it the present.
Exactly that one.
Yeah.
And we all from when we heard this quote about now it really means.
It does. And
it really gives it meaning after this. That's definitely my favorite quote.
Absolutely.
At the moment.
Bonus question. I'm running out of questions. Crystal, we'll have to, shall I read it to you in case you, sometimes the team write but not this one. What is the happiest childhood memory you have?
Wow.
Oh, that's quite nice. I was telling you it might be just your favorite color, but this one's deeper.
That's a nice one. Thank God I had a very nice childhood. I have a lot of nice memories. But I guess I think the most magical would be when I grew up in Germany and I would go to school with my school bag on a sledge. Is it?
Yeah.
On a sledge and walk through the snow with my little school bag and just pulling it to school. Because we were in this village and we lived, it was very, very safe. So, and I don't know how old I am, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, walking on your own.
Walking through the fresh snow. And because, in the wintertime, it's very dark in the early mornings. And just everything was just glittery and magical. And the sound of the snow, I think that was probably, I remember this and the sound and I can feel the snow and feel the cold. And I just love that. I just love that. Mental picture, my happy place. Yeah.
And we all need a happy place sometimes that we can retreat into. And then, and it's something that I do, and I think it's quite important. Maybe you do it already, but to remember that, like kind of happy place, that child that you were, and just remember to hug that child that you were.
Exactly.
That's still in you. And just you now as an adult, hug that version of you and remind yourself that you're loved and you're there for you. Yeah. And you have been.
Very true, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marie.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best. And whenever you're ready to get back into interior design, you know where you're coming
My
first.
best project, the tower. That was definitely my favorite.
Yeah. We did some nice apartments.
Exactly. It was definitely with the fun, and we have lots of fun together.
We did.
Then it was definitely a really successful project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So guys, if you haven't already, come check out the lobby of the tower. Marie did that. And quite a few of the apartments.
Yes. And I have to try the golden monkey.
Yes, you
which
do.
That will be my next date night.
Yeah, for sure.
I have not
because
tried it. So.
Yeah, it opened when you guys, I think, were in the hospital in the midst of everything. So I also had COVID at the opening. So I didn't even make the opening.
See, lots of stories. As you said, lots of relative stories to COVID.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So definitely have to try that.
Well, God bless you.
And you too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.